Thank you, Kathy. I just want to be sure everybody can hear. I do tend to speak low. Okay. Well, it's an honor to be here with you. And I thought because we've been lulled into this lovely space of quietude, I would start with a poem. So if you'd like to, perhaps close your eyes and just receive. Dream the in-loveness of your own heart. Dream the in-loveness of your own heart until you can feel it. Let your life be that, a hymn to your blemishless being. Shine your light like the sun growing over the meadow at dawn, growing brighter. How far have you trawled? How long have you sought the answer? How often has the key to eternity been laid at your feet? Lean now into the secret. Open without need. Embrace the bouquet of all that's unknown. But know this, you have always been free. Laugh in the face of what scares you, for love hides in the sleeve of your deepest fear. Don't doubt that the craving is love, bearing intimate gifts of what is most true. Give up all you have believed. Be still. Listen to the love that is more exquisite than life. Heed now. Love is coming for you. So today I would like to speak about love and a particular aspect of love. Okay, thank you. Self-love. Many years ago, I was blessed with a very profound accident in Ireland that culminated in a near-death experience. And I say blessed because it set me on this road to a long, arduous, but very worthwhile journey towards self-love. When I was kind of catapulted out of my body, I was just swimming in this ocean of expansive love, this infinite embrace of beauty, of perfection, of harmony. And it was so cozy and beautiful. I can hardly wait to go back. But I was told that it wasn't my time. I had work to do. And it was a shock to come back. It was really, it's been a couple of decades of deep healing. And it really felt that this expansive love that we all are, it's the very foundation, it's the substratum of existence. I couldn't experience that here in a body fully until I could really embrace love for myself, until I could really come all the way back home to the sanctuary of my own heart. And it's a funny thing. It's often the last place we tend to look. So, it was a very, very worthwhile journey, let's say, this journey back towards wholeness. And so today I just want to speak about this journey of coming back to the part of ourselves that gets left behind. Love of ourself, our human self, with all of our imagined foibles and shortcomings. And this part of ourselves is so hungry for our love, for our attention. And even the Buddha himself is said to have said, you can search through the entire universe. You can search through the entire universe for someone who's more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anybody, deserve your love and affection. And so a poem popped up on my computer recently, and it's one I've always loved. And it's about self-love. It's about this invitation to take our attention away from the world and come back to true north, come back to our inner home. And it's by the Caribbean poet Derek Walcott. And some of you may be familiar with it. I offer it to you now as inspiration, and it's called Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself, arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. So I love this, feast on your life, on this magnificent, unique expression of divinity that has shape-shifted into your particular human form. It's an amazing gift, this borrowed body. It's given to you as an endowment of love made manifest. That's who you are, it's who we are. Divine love manifest in these bodies in form. And the poem seems to say, make a sacrament of your life. Honor it all, the beauty and the bruises, the light and the heaviness. And I love this advice to fold back into your heart all the places you've ignored within yourself, often in favor of someone else. So it feels important to make room for compassion, for understanding, for all the pieces of ourselves that we judge. It's ironic that we can be so harsh on ourselves, be such a willing critic, when every breath, every thought, every movement is really bequeathed to us for our blossoming. Every cell is conjured by the master architect of love, of source. Still, we do criticize ourselves. It's kind of stitched into our conditioning. And it's a great kindness, I think, both to yourself and to humanity, to accept and allow and hold in love the places inside that we want to reject or resist. And I'll give you an example. You may be familiar with the poet David Whyte. He shared this story about when he was young, maybe 19 or so. He was up in the Highlands of Scotland with an Irish piper, his friend. He said they were poor as church mice. And it was freezing cold, as it tends to be in Scotland. And they were coming home to their respective homes. And they got to the train station. And David said he was wearing this really warm, fuzzy lamb's wool sweater. And his friend had this paper-thin shirt on. And David's train came first. So he was about to get into the warm train. And his friend was standing there freezing and kept admiring his sweater. So David got into the train and he said, I couldn't give it to him. I couldn't take off the sweater. I just couldn't do it. And he said it haunted him for years until he stopped. And he just really looked inside to get to the root of what that was about. And he discovered that it was this belief that there's just never enough. There just isn't enough. And of course, his mother is from Ireland. I can relate to this, the whole history of the famine, and his father from England during World War II, rationing. So it was like this ancestral piece that he had carried that really wasn't his, but had been imbibed. And he said as soon as he saw that, the whole thing just dissolved. And he said he never affected by that situation again. So it's just for me that a beautiful example of how when we really meet those ghosts inside, the wounding that, is inevitable in this life as a human being, that we can really transform. So you may remember Dr. Emoto and the experiments he did about water and how intention changed the molecular structure of the water. So when he spoke kindly, benevolently to a glass of water, the molecular structure shapeshifted into absolute beauty. Whereas when he cursed and, was rude to the water, it developed these patterns of incoherence and dissonance. And, when you consider our bodies are made of mostly water, it's really something to consider how we speak to it, that perhaps we can offer more kindness, more understanding, more compassion. So imagine being your own best friend, your own support, your own lover and beloved. The writer, if I can pronounce this right, Nahira Wahid, he wrote this beautiful description of it. He was asked, what does love look like? What does love look like? And he said, like everything I ever lost, come back to me. Everything I ever lost, come back to me. All those orphaned parts of us welcomed back home into the sanctuary of our loving being. I think that's so beautiful and really accurate. And so you may ask about the suffering in the world, and is it selfish to look inside? And, Jesus himself said that the kingdom of heaven resides within. And the Indian sage Ramana Maharshi, he was alive during World War II, and he was asked about this. And he said, self-reform leads to social reform. In other words, the more that we start at home with love, we look after our own side of the street. If everybody did that and was loving towards themselves, we live in a supremely loving world. So I think it's really worth pondering. I heard an interview recently where a woman was asking her spiritual teacher about the world's suffering. And he said to her, have you ever killed an ant? And she nodded. He said, have you ever judged someone? She nodded again. And he said, start there, just start there. Because if the world is the outer reflection of what's really happening inside, then what better place to begin than inside the treasure chest of your own heart, where the true crown jewels reside. So the spoken word poet, Andrea Gibson, she's an amazing, amazing poet. She has said that she lived her whole life in fear, in anticipation of the worst. And then she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And something about the shock of it just jolted her out of her asleepness, let's say, and she woke up to the beauty and the magnificence of love, of life, of having a body at all. And she could just feel love for the entire universe, including herself. And I'd like to just share a few words that she wrote. She said, I remember the exact moment I discovered what loving myself felt like. It wasn't anything I'd expected, as it involved absolutely no thinking, no pep talks about my accomplishments, no comparisons to others. I learned the sensation of self-love is the sensation of loving the entire universe, and it stirs an almost ecstatic sense of belonging. I wish that for everyone. Belonging, home. It's so beautiful. You can just feel how when that expansive love is felt, it's no longer really personal. It's inclusive of the whole world. So Julia Fehrenbacher is a poet who has written a poem called The Most Important Thing. And I'll read you just a few lines. She talks about building a home inside herself. Perhaps you could build a home inside yourself, a welcoming sanctuary, a shelter of kindness where everything is forgiven, everything allowed, a patch of sunlight where all that has been banished and buried is welcomed, spoken, listened to, and released. I was listening to a podcast by Sam Harris. Maybe some of you will know him. And he spoke of this life, this dream, this blink of an eye as an enchantment, an enchantment. And I love that. It's like a spell that's been cast, a spell of love. We're here in this realm where we can evolve and learn kindness, compassion, love for ourselves, and flower into our true beauty, eventually dissolving into that infinite, seamless love where the walls of separation just come down and we melt into that singular, unified field, the one love to which we all belong. You think it would be easy, and it's not. It can be a life's work. But I will say that it is the most wonderful thing, the most worthwhile journey, to not just love, but to embody it, to actually become it eventually, to fully inhabit our true nature and remember our original self. I don't know if any of you've heard of the writer Raymond Carver. Anybody heard of him? He had an early difficult life. He was an alcoholic. He got divorced. He was penniless. He was trying to make a name as a writer. And somehow out of this enchantment, his life turned around. He met the love of his life. He stopped drinking. He ended up becoming a very well-respected writer. Everything was just flowing for him. And then he was told he had 6 months to live. He had lung cancer. And instead of being bitter and angry, he sat down and he wrote this short poem that I'd like to share with you. I find it really inspiring. It's called Late Fragment. And did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so. Did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so. I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. Even so, did you get what you wanted from this life? Even with all of the difficulties and the challenges, all of the heartbreak and the disappointments, did you get what you wanted from your precious life? And I love his answer. I did. To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. It's so easy, as I can attest, to know yourself as perfection when you don't have a body anymore. Here in the density of the human world, I just feel it's really an amazing thing to really consider calling ourselves beloved, to feel ourselves all the way as love. And I've always felt, just to add a little bit to that poem, not to the poem, but to the idea, did you give what you wanted to this world, in this life? Did you share the beauty of your heart, your light, your unique marriage of divinity packaged in a human envelope? Once we filled our cup, we have so much love to shower on everyone else. Let me see. And there's still time, even if you haven't given everything you wanted. The Andrea Gibson, who I talked about earlier, she wrote these amazing lines. She said, "No, I'm not on death's door, but I'm in the neighborhood." And so are you. Strolling through the cul-de-sacs, waving at eternity's porch light. It's pretty amazing. It's such a brief stint here that we have. And someone who really embodied love while he was alive is a dear friend of mine, Gavin Harrison. His spiritual name was Socha. He was a gay man from South Africa. He lived with HIV for most of his adult life. He died a few years ago on a plane to Hawaii, where he was a spiritual teacher. But he left behind this amazingly beautiful book. He did a lot of fundraising for AIDS orphans in Africa and was actually given an award by the Dalai Lama for his service, his humanitarian service. So his books are here. I brought 20 copies. It's such a beautiful book. And they're for you to take if you would like. They're free. It's a mix of poems and stories about his life in Africa. And he was such a devotee. There's a lot of kind of mystic poetry and writing in it. So I know he would love to gift you that. So just to finish up, when we learn to love ourselves, to really become love, we become more present to ourselves and therefore more available to presence. We fall in love with everyone, with all of it without exception. As Jesus invoked, a light unto the world. So let's go spread the love and the light. There's no better place to start than here in this amazingly welcoming, loving community. So thank you.